Welcome everyone to another episode of Running It Back. My name is MissHarvey, and I'm joined as usual with Jamerson.
Not
this
as
time,
usual.
But
Not
this time, it's this cat.
I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but I think everyone can use cute cat pics right now. So, yeah.
So no cam for Jamerson this week, but it's okay because we have two guests to compensate. We only have one camera for these two guests, and that camera is on Temperature from Moon Raccoons. Hi, Temperature.
Hi, I'm Temperature.
How are you?
Pepper. I'm doing all right.
But you're not alone. Your name is Nolan. You're here with Chris, also known as Rebo. Hi, Chris.
Hello. How are you doing today?
Great. So when you guys hear that voice from a really outside world, that's going to be Chris. And when you can see the lips of Temperature moving, that's Nolan actually talking. But Jamerson, we need to talk about your cat. I think that's really important before we jump into Valorant stuff. So what's your cat's name?
This is Peach. She's a long girl. You guys can't see it, but her paws go for days, and it actually stretches way beyond this picture. It doesn't actually fit inside the picture. But yeah, I just wanted to welcome you guys, Moon Raccoons. It's awesome to have you guys on the show. We've had you in our past tournaments as well, and it was an absolute pleasure to see you guys grow. I think one thing we were talking about before the show actually started was, we're kind of like a good luck charm here on Running It Back, because every time we have a guest on, or before we ask a guest to come on, or when we ask a guest to come on, they end up getting signed. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome. We're kind of like the good luck charm. So we hope that we can bring you lots of things, good things coming up in the future. But in a way, I don't think you need it. You guys are already so freaking awesome. First of all, your name is awesome, Moon Raccoons. And before we jump into today's topics, I have to ask you guys, where does Moon Raccoon come from?
So I think that's actually a question for me, since I ended up creating the team.
You're Captain Rebo, right?
Yeah, Captain Rebo. Ended up making the team back in the first iteration of it, and really it was actually a name by one of the first players, Skelly. And what there was it's a way, just how do you create a team is like you get a noun and you get a cute animal, and you just combine those two and you make a good team name from that. That's it. So that's where the team name came from, where we just had Moon, we had Raccoons, and we just did a ton of brainstorming what would be the best, and that was the thing that we kind of set on. So
I love it.
Bazooka puppies, laser kittens. Yeah, I feel it.
Bazooka puppies actually an inspiration of it, actually. So.
And the pirates, the pirates in Europe. There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Party parrots. It's it. What the hell? The party parrots. There's a lot of those that are coming out. I like it. I wish I could go back through all my competing years and redo all of my team names.
So I mean, there's a name on the roster, right? Your coach, Raptors. That really does stick out to me. I guess at this point, it's me leading to asking, how many of you guys are like come from Overwatch, but also just tell us about each of your competitive backgrounds.
So I'll start. I come from Counter-Strike. Specifically, I played about a season and a half of MDL. Never really got back in MDL after that, but I just kind of got done with the game and just came over to Valorant, and I was like, okay, let's see how it goes, and just very much enjoyed myself playing it. So here I am.
Is that the case for all of your teammates? Are they all from CS?
Everyone aside from Profi is from Counter-Strike, and Raptors is from Overwatch.
Okay, someone in chat said that Profi was from PUBG. Is that true?
Oh yeah, PUBG.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. And that reminds me, if you guys have any questions for a guest throughout the whole show, make sure to interact with them in the chat. And we love to make sure that we ask those hot topic questions that you want to ask. So Rebo, what's your background? Talk to us a little bit about it.
Tim said a little bit. I didn't get to Tim's level MDL, but I played a little below that in advanced. I was high advanced playoffs, MDL relegation, stuff like that. So that was my main kind of thing I came from. Then making my way to Valorant. So that's where I come from personally. Yeah.
I have to ask, because 4 of you are from Counter-Strike, and we often talk about how Counter-Strike MDL is so rough right now in NA, kind of dying, and that all of these players are switching to Valorant. Can you, since you guys are first and those people that did exactly that, can you talk to me a little bit about your reasoning why you decided to switch scene, pretty much?
I was just done.
What does that mean?
I was just done. When I would show up to practice or play, it wasn't really fun anymore. I didn't enjoy it. I played for 6 years, and it was just getting boring. And I was starting to get very complacent with how I was playing. And I'm like, okay, I didn't have a desire to put more work in. And then came to Valorant on that. Is just, I had a desire to work again, and I still do. And I just enjoy myself, have fun every day, versus I have practice tonight. So big difference on that.
No,
Big,
we
big
appreciate
difference.
the honesty. I mean, honestly, like you do need to keep that passion, right? And if you're just not having fun playing the game anymore, you don't see yourself improving, like that's just a natural plateau. And sometimes, you just need a change of pace. So I love that honesty, man.
Yeah, like, was it the kind of the same for you, Chris?
Yeah, pretty much. No, not really actually, because I still really enjoy CS. I think the main thing is I went from it. It was more like for me opportunities and then ideas from IGL kind of speak. So in CS, I was always methodical with my IGL. I always like getting crazy strats, kind of building upon that. And Valorant just allowed me to do more of that. So it's just really interesting from a strategical point of view to be able to implement more of my kind of ideas I wasn't really able to do in CS. That being said, I always for me, like whatever, it's a competitive game. I just enjoy it. I love being able to make teams. I love being able to build teams, building the best teams with strategies and just making a good atmosphere you can play in. Because one thing I kind of pride myself on is just building a team that people just love playing in, and building a team that's people just enjoy being with each other. And that's in general. It's just I love the social aspect of it. So whether it's CS or Valorant, either way, it's more going to CS was just kind of a next stepping stone.
Sounds good. And can you just talk to me about your new pickup, that PUBG player? How did you guys find him? How did that connection happen?
We played him in, I believe, the Rarity tournament, of which his team actually ended up beating us in the finals in a best of 5. Sadly, we had to play our worst map twice, which is just unfortunate. But he played very well then, and I believe we saw that he was looking for a team, and we're like, okay, we'll try him out. He seemed like a pretty good Sova. He was pretty annoying to play against because of how he was throwing his darts, so I'm like, that's a good sign.
It's just as simple as that. Nolan, you are just a simple answer person. You're straightforward, straight to the point. Tell us how it is right away. He was just pretty good. That's it. All right.
I find that the more annoying the player to play against, the better they are. Because if they don't annoy you enough, maybe they're not doing things 100%.
I like this reasoning. I'm that kind of person that if I'm annoyed with a player, I give them respect. Okay, so let's jump into some news, guys. There's a lot of great things that happened very recently. Their new patch came out. First of all, we have to talk about Sky because she's now available for competitive play. Did you guys try it out? Are you guys focused on the previous patch because of the tournaments? Like, what's your thought on Sky at the moment?
So for me, actually, I think it's kind of the same thing as Breach. I think flashes in this game are very, very good because of how fast the impact is, according to like CS. CS, you're able to play around it in a ton of situations because you can kind of predict about what's going on. But the immediate impact of flashes are so good. Even it can be either a fake flash with the bird and all that stuff. So I think she's going to have an immediate impact. It's just to a point of people need to be creative with it and how you're going to be using it. Because being able to go flashes over buildings, having a bigger impact along longer sight lines and all that are going to be really interesting to see how those kind of play out. And then obviously with the ultimates, info ults are always very good no matter what because it allows you to really play to adaptability and according to what the enemy team has set up instead of going into a straight line kind of execute. So being able to have, first of all, an adaptable agent that has good utility that is very info-based is a recipe for success. So I really want to see how that kind of plays out. And people are going to say that you can break the utility, but the thing is, either way, you're giving information if you break it. So any info is good info in the end. So I think it's going to be a direct success in the beginning. But at the moment, we already see how good Breach is. I think Sky's going to be the same thing, especially with her heals. So.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part, right? Her flexibility, especially with that heal now. She just it's like 2 roles, and it seems like compositions can change up drastically with the fact that she has the flash as well. So I don't know, you can run like 2 agents with flashes if you want, but I feel like she might just be enough for a composition that you can roll out anything else at this point.
Yeah, she really is interesting. I played around with her, not in a game, but just in the shooting range. The flash is very interesting to me because you can't really counter it at the moment that I can think of. Because you see that bird and you're like, at any moment, I can be blind. So you're dodging it, but you have to wait, right? So you could be hidden from that flash for like a good like 5 seconds. So it's giving a lot of freedom for teams to play around strategically with it. So it's going to be very interesting to see when these flash are being used and whatnot. I'm excited. I think you mentioned something, Jamerson. I'm excited to see compositions with her. I think she's really going to mess things up. Like people are going to be replacing Breach. People are going to be replacing Sova. People are going to, and just like trying out new things and seeing what works best with her or not. And this is a good one for me. I'm excited for her.
Did you guys see that Wardell clip where he was playing
Yup.
on a sense and he's just flashed for the entire clip? It's like a minute long and it just felt like he was flashed the entire time.
Oh, you can
Yeah.
shoot the flash, someone said in chat.
You can
Yeah.
shoot it, but it's kind of the same
Ah.
thing as a rain of flash. If you're playing one of those, we'll just say rat angles where you're super close, it's just very awkward to fight. You know he's there. He had to shoot it, or he suffers through a blind, and then it's just he dies anyway.
The risk reward thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's basically
that's
you can use it as a Sova drone kind of in a lot of senses.
It's more like a
oh.
rain of flash though at the same time.
It's like a mix between. Yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Because she can be in it, look, and kind of like a camera. Boop. Like, I don't know. Like, this is so, like, she's so flexible. She's super, super interesting to me.
Mhm.
I'm very
Yeah.
excited.
I mean, there's just so many other changes that also come in, right? Some of the Sentinel changes as well. So like, it's just her value seems so high right now.
Yeah, she's going to be very interesting. So if she's available in 2 weeks, does that mean she's going to be playable on First Strike? I'm trying to do the math.
To my understanding, she will be playable for the First
Wow.
Strike main event, and I believe the closed for UMG, but it will not be in the UMG Open.
Okay, that's so messed up. I think that's so messed up that you do qualifiers with a character that isn't there, and then you release a patch, puts a new character, and then have a tournament finals with the same teams with a new character. I'm not okay with that. Very upset. What do you guys think?
Same thing. Don't.
Okay.
I believe updating in the middle of your own tournament is very bizarre, and especially because you have to roll back the update going into, I believe it was the second day of the Nerd Tree Open qualifier. They're like, "Oh, this update sucks. It's not ready. We need to
Oh,
roll
yeah.
it back. There's so many bugs." And you go into an Open qualifier again. It's like, okay, you play with this. You have all the updates, you just don't have an agent. So at the very least, it's not as big of a change as it was during the Nerd Street qualifier. But at the same time, it's like, really? You could have pushed this off like a week for the main event. And then everyone has their time.
But I
think
feel like
it's,
that just like comes
go
down to the
ahead.
tournament organizer, right? Like, shouldn't they be the one to make that call and shouldn't like?
But
the
that's
onus is on
Riot,
them?
right? First Strike is Riot. So
Yeah.
Riot's dictating the rules. So they may be run, but they kind of have to listen to what Riot says.
True.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. It's like the majors, right? Yeah, so it might
Yep.
be like in
Mhm.
CS. In CS, for those who are not following, there's a major run by a third party, but it's still like run the rules of the major. But for me, not only is it like risky? Obviously, the bugs we talked about last week's patch, it was what a nightmare that timeline on my Twitter was that day. But pretty much competitive integrity here for me is screwed. You have teams that have been practicing for months the setups and they're working on the meta and whatnot, and all of a sudden you add in an agent that could completely ruin what most teams have been working on, and it could. So for me, it messes up with competitive integrity a big time to release it during an event. Like before and after, okay, whatever, but during the event for me is just screwed with data. So pretty upset about it.
For me, I'm actually more devil's advocate on the problem.
All right, let me know. Let me know more.
Yeah, I'm actually, for me, there's not a lot of, especially with the way the events are kind of being done at the moment, where there's a ton of events every single weekend. They're going like there's 10Ks every other week on that. There's not a really good time you can do it off that. I think the best thing you can really do is just be transparent with the issue, because either way they have to help with the casual audience. That is something that people need to talk about out there, and they did much better in the sense of, okay, this 2 weeks after it's being released, that's when you're able to play. So now it's on the players to be like, okay, you know about it, you know about the time, it's not on top of you, you can prepare for it after that point, you know. And that's something I definitely enjoy about that. Obviously, the changes to the actual patch, with the changes to agents, Sentinel agents, and all that, that's different in the perspective. But in Sky, I think with a lot of this is going to happen later on, honestly, in the game, where agents are going to come out and people need to be able to adapt to it. And where a lot of people in CS, like, you just needed to have a clear-cut baseline.
Little doggo. Yeah, no worries. We love the animals. We have a cat on the show today. Yeah, I understand your point. And if you want to finish your thoughts, feel free to do. But I do think that they're probably still the best company regarding that. So I get it. I know why you're being the devil's advocate, because we have been trashed and destroyed in the mud with Valve and CS. So I completely understand that you're like giving them the benefit of the doubt, but also like props for them for transparency and putting it slowly into the game. But for me, it's not because we had a really bad habit and we're used to having kind of no respect to the players by the companies that I think we should accept this. Well, I mean, we don't have a choice but to accept it, but I mean, I hope for the better. I hope that next time they release it right before or right after the qualifiers in the main event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like speaking of the qualifiers, November 11th, we got the next First Strike event going on.
Yes,
and there's a lot to unpack there, because some of these groups. How do you? Okay, first off, let's talk about how you guys feel about the groups and how the seeding is and like where everyone is. What do you guys think is like the group of death, and like what's like just like the easy cakewalk group?
If I were to say the group of death, Group C, 100% Group C. As for the easy cakewalk group, Group D.
Yeah.
No offense to some of those teams, but as we have played against Renegades, we believe they're not one of the strongest teams out there. But overall, if you compare it to like Group C, you see Dignitas, Sentinels, and Envy, and then Spot Up's there. Well, that group is just really, the only notable team is really TSM, and then kind of built by gamers. As for the team's name I hate saying, Slimy Boogerman, I think is a very bad branding idea.
Not like Moon Raccoons, right? They forgot the animals, that's why. Instead of the Boogerman, if it was the slimy slots, you would be like pretty happy about it right now.
So between those two groups is Group D. If I were to say who would probably make it through, I'd probably say TSM and BBG.
Yeah.
Well, Group C, I'm like, I would assume Envy and Sentinels. But if Sentinels were not hiding what they had in the qualifier to make it to that point, let's just assume they weren't hiding anything, then I could see Dignitas beating them in the end.
Yeah,
I mean, that is a very important point. Like Sentinels, you know, they bowed out of a couple tournaments, and you know, we know that teams do that. Like they just don't want to show their strats. So I think that's a very important point.
What about Group B? It does feel like this is going to be another really, really rough group to be a part of. Like not necessarily complexity at the moment, but Genji, T1, Equinox. I feel that they could. Equinox could surprise them on a bad day, I think.
On a bad day, I'd agree. But I would generally assume Genji is going to be the team to make it out, considering their pickup with Sean, who's just overall a really smart player and frags really well too. As for the game of T1 versus Complexity, my problem with T1 is they have a very, very Counter-Strike default heavy style. And with the new update, albeit I don't believe they're going to be playing on it, it's just not really going to favor them by any means. And it's just not really, in our opinion, the best type of style to be playing.
Yeah,
Super slow, albeit they did beat us, I believe, in the Nerd Street Renegades tournament during groups. And that was one of our first encounters with playing that type of style, so it kind of caught us off guard because we couldn't really do what we normally do against it. This is a big point of improvement for us. So I'd assume Team 1, but complexity could surprise. As for Equinox, there's a chance, but unlikely.
I like their logo. I know that it has nothing to do with its talk, but their logo is kind of cute for me. In Group A, obviously 100 Thieves, Cloud9. Who is Xsets? I actually don't know who they are and where they're coming from.
Team is Brando, Aaron, Dwifo, Pure, and I believe we did.
So this is a team that's been around for a little bit. I don't remember seeing them quite often.
Kind of a similar situation with our team where we had a 4-core for a while and we just couldn't find the right fifth, so we picked up Profi. They were kind of in the same situation where they had a 4-core being Brando, Aaron, Dwifo, and Pure. They were together and they recently picked up We Did, and they're like experimenting on who they're going to get. And they're honestly a pretty decent team. They're one of the harder teams for us to personally play, especially in scrims and in matches. I just believe they have a good play style that fits Valorant really well. As for them, it's just overall they're a pretty solid team. They've been around a while, but just didn't have a fifth.
Yeah.
So this, go ahead.
Dwifo was the Fortnite transplant, and he top ranked quite heavily, and like he's just one of those players. Cypher main, right? But he's
been changing a lot, yeah.
Playing Cypher, playing I believe Breach is what he played against us in the Nerd
He's been
Street.
playing a lot of Breach, honestly, lately.
Mm-hmm. So they're experimenting with what's best as well.
Okay. And so from my understanding, this tournament is going to be GSL style. So each group is actually not playing each other. They're all of them. They're doing like a GSL bracket within the group. And that means at the end, there's going to be like a championship bracket with the top 2 from each of that GSL style bracket. And then the top 4 of that will make it to first strike. Are you guys going to be watching today?
Oh, definitely.
Today, personally, probably not. We'll be practicing, but watching the matches later, definitely.
Yeah. And
seeing if anyone has any cool ideas.
The second qualifier is in November 11. You guys are going to be playing that one, I see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
100%.
That's great. And that top 8 teams is going to be playing on December 3rd to 6th for the 100K first strike.
Mm-hmm.
So just so that you guys remember at home when to be excited for the first strike event. So it's actually a pretty long process. In my head, it would have been like, it was a little bit shorter. So it's like over 2 months, or a little less than that. So that's quite awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the EU first strike teams locked. So that has been concluded, and that's something we can show you right now. We have our top 8 for EU. Let me just, my page kind of did not work. So you guys can probably see it on the screen. I see that you are clicking on it, but the teams are all decided for the event. I'm trying to see, but it's like broken for me.
I believe they have like 300 some odd teams for this, and this is why I was really excited initially for the announcement of First Strike. Just the overall just like wave of competitive players who just really want to prove their stuff and haven't had the opportunity because, you know, like I guess how the status quo of competitive works. It's going to be like the top orgs that are just going to be invited to everything. You're not going to have like too many teams from like tier 2, tier 3 being able to really prove their stuff. So I like this qualifier just opening it up and just seeing what EU has to offer, especially when really, you know, most people outside of EU can only name about 3 or 4 like EU teams that are like, oh yeah, look out for them. When we understand that there's a deep competitive shooter history in EU.
Yeah. Okay. So my apologies. My notes were I confused myself here. It's not the top 8 teams, but it's just the qualifier, like you mentioned. One thing that I find interesting in NA, it was top 128 teams, or not top, but the first 128 teams that were entering the qualifiers. But in EU, they have 512 slots to enter this tournament. And what the hell?
Well, round of 512, I don't think it's like too crazy. You know, when you consider like what the European Union has 400, 500 million people, and then you add on CIS, maybe Turkey as well. I don't know exactly how like the region breaks down and how they're doing that, if they're including CIS in all of this. But overall, as a population, you know, it's much larger. North America, if you combine, I don't know exactly how many people are in Canada and Mexico, but similar rates. But the representation of EU and shooters has been massive for 2 decades now.
They are implementing CIS. They even go as far as Israel. There's about 18 countries, if I'm not mistaken, from that website. There's even the Liechtenstein, Bosnia. So Iceland is on there, Macedonia. Like, this is an insane qualifier, and I'm, like you said, it's gonna be exciting. It's about time that we have more deeper European pools. Do you guys follow the European scene? Chris,
I personally do not, but Rebo does.
Yeah, I love watching any scene. You know, was it's like EU included. I think Party Parrots, now FPX, they're amazing watch every time. I definitely think they're right about the idea of ultimates being played in the game instead of playing for more consistent rounds with agents. You want to be playing for more ultimates and then using those to translate into round wins off that, because it's just more consistent to play off ultimate round wins. So I definitely think they're above and far ahead of other teams on that kind of field off there. But then G2, they're just like skilled on a team. They're just killing everyone on that. Mixwell's insane. So it's fun to see how both the scenes are kind of playing out, where there's just a certain type of meta. Like NA's a very individual type of meta. People running around, kind of playing aggression kind of style. Where EU sometimes a little methodical, but then you have G2 is kind of an NA style, but then FPX is the direct opposite of that. So I think it's playing out a little bit more in EU with like what kind of things are being created, but it's definitely interesting to see what's the different scenes makes different metas.
I would like to agree. Go ahead, Nolan.
Actually, something I wanted to note about the first strike qualifier for EU versus NA is that the EU qualifier is single elim best of 1, while the NA was single elim best of 3.
That's
so
a big
through
difference.
128 teams, we all played a best of 3 every time to get eliminated. In the case of EU, you could play a top tier team, best of 1, anything can happen. So I just wanted to note that real fast.
That is actually a very, very interesting discrepancy. And I mean, you know, you can maybe chalk it up to like the tournament organizer or like, you know, the admins are like, hey, if we do best of 3 through round of 512, we can literally be here, you know, just getting through that first round would just like entirely take an entire day because of scheduling, teams not showing up and having the manpower for that. That's absolutely insane. But I believe it should all be best of 3 as well, because yeah, you're almost 50-50ing it at that point if you just leave it up to a best of 1.
I am scrolling as far as I can to see how far the best of 1 goes, but as far as I know, it's all of the first part of the qualifier.
All the way through.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Wow. That is actually yikes. That is huge.
The playoffs are when best of 3 start. So when you get down to the top 8, that's when they have best of 3s. So
good luck. That's gonna be a rough one. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in those shoes of these teams that have to fight 500 teams, best of 1, on like split.
I'd hate that. Someone wins a coin flip, they win.
Yeah, it really is. I think one of the things is just that, you know, it really does play into the favor of like the lesser known teams because if you look at your G2s and like FPX and stuff, like there's tape on them. You can study them. If you know what map you're going to be playing map 1, you have all the resources in the world to try and study and pick apart their game. And that best of 1 really like starts going over to 60-40% instead in your favor instead of being at 50-50. This is crazy.
I completely agree with that.
I think one thing about that though is definitely with best of 1s, it's good to get people's names out there, but then also people discredit because it is a best of 1, where best of 3s are usually like, if you win a best of 3 versus a good team, you beat that team, That's one thing I don't like about best of 1s, where people tend to discredit certain wins because it was a best of 1, and they'd use that to, instead of actually allowing the team to have the win and be like, okay, they did a really good job with that, they tend to look at the bad part about it. So that's the only thing I don't like about those, really.
Completely agree. And on that same vein, we have another Twitch rival event that's going to be dedicated to Valorant. So that's exciting. It's going to happen on November 6th. One thing I'm trying to understand, and if from the news and whatnot, and it's the thing I don't like about Twitch rivals, to be quite honest, is that there's very little info. Like all that I can see is that tweet. I tried to dig a little bit and I couldn't get more, but it looks like it might be Spike Nations for Europe. So I'm wondering what it is, but apparently it looks like it's for charity. So a bunch of teams are going to play against each other. There's going to be some influencers, and it's all going to be for a charity. But that's, as far as I know, that's all that I know. And it's going to be in Europe. So
yeah. One thing I want to talk about that, by the way, the Twitch channel. All right, the Twitch channel is Valorant _esports _EU. So I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Like, you got to imagine there's a lot of planning going on over there at Riot to figure out exactly how they want to roll out their competitive thing. Why is this channel called Valorant _esports _EU?
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Nolan.
Not everyone has as good of a naming sense as others.
True.
Oh, Moon Raccoon! There it is. How many times are we gonna drop it every time? I love it. I agree. I think the whole thing is really confusing. Also, it's called like Spike Nations, but in the post, it doesn't really talk about anything. The only reason why I knew it was EU was what you just mentioned. It's on the EU channel and it's on GST time. So GMT time. So I was like, well, probably only EU. But like anything Twitch travel, it always seems to be like, we have something to create in the next 3 days. Let me ask people and create this $1 million tournament in 2 days with absolutely no publicity and hype. That's how I feel about Twitch rivals. I don't understand ever anything about it.
And I think the whole branding thing around it is the weird part, right? Like, because everyone understands like Twitch rivals is like odd. In the case that it's not really competitive, right? Usually what they have, and then they mark this under Twitch esports, but if there's going to be a lot of influencers involved and stuff like that, it's really not esports, it's an exhibition. It's just
but it says the best of Valorant. Jamerson. As I say that, I just straight up close the image. I'm like, that's it. I'm not gonna waste any more time on this.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about a lot of the news. Let's start talking about a lot of the recap, because I mean, we did have some pretty cool stuff. And so like the Nerd Street, the Nerd Street gamers, of course, put on the first round qualifier, and that was a thing because it was so difficult trying to like hunt down every stream for whatever game. Like it was a lot. And I know in the last episode I asked for it. I want to see more. I want to see lengthier formats and stuff like that. And I got it. And it was just a little bit too much for me to keep up with. But it was absolutely insane.
It was so insane. I had to like the Valorant tab open and I was just like jump to the most viewers. I didn't really know what was going on. They would not reference each other. Obviously, we're all community based. It was kind of chaos. But Moon Raccoons, you guys were in it. So why don't you let us know a little bit how you felt about that first strike club?
I thought it was run pretty well. I'm going to let Rebo talk.
Okay, yeah. I think, honestly, kind of like what Tim said, it was run really well. I love the best of 3 format they kind of did. They didn't burn you out with doing 4 best of 3s a day. It was just 2 a day. Very manageable. You're able to game plan if you want a game plan. You're just able to go into the games, and usually with nursery qualifiers, they're always, or nursery tournaments in general, they're always great. The admins are fantastic to work with. They fix your problems instantly. So I really think NSG did a great job with that tournament altogether, honestly.
Oh yeah, no, I have nothing against the format. It was just a lot of content to try to keep up with. I mean, and yeah, hats off always to Nerd Street Gamers. I mean, I've worked with them in the past, and they are very much a player-focused, player-first kind of organization. So no surprise whatsoever that you guys walked away happy competing in it. What were your biggest takeaways in the games though that you guys played?
Really, for us, in the games that we played, a lot of it's at least the 100 Thieves game. That was the biggest. What a fun game on that. Honestly, like we had such a blast in there. But the rest of them were really just solid because we were really able to teams that we could upset us. Like in a sense, like the best of three made it so they couldn't upset us. You know, where it was a best of three format where we could just beat all the games and just kind of go in one by one. And then it's also a good warm up for the rest of them. You know, but when the 100 Thieves game came, it wasn't. It was just such a fun game where like one round determined if a team won it or not, you know. So it's just back and forth, back and forth. So that's going to be a game that I'm going to be watching for a while, honestly, because that's some of the most fun I've had in Valorant. So
Yeah, you guys are really close to making it to the event that's happening today. For those who didn't catch that game, it was a 2-1 scoreline for Under Thief. So you were able to win one map out of it. I watched it. I was your biggest fan in the chat just because of your name. So, you know, you did something right with the Moon Raccoon. But I do really like that we can see these kind of things happening in Valorant. We've seen it throughout the whole year, and we're seeing it again with you guys. When we think that there's no more teams to be picked up, another one kind of emerge and is next on the line and beating or close to beating the top team. So that's very exciting. There's a couple of things that happened during that qualifier. First of all, Equinox beating FaZe in round 1. What do we think about that?
yeah, I think honestly, the great thing about Valorant in general is like really anyone can beat anyone. You know, just like if one round came here and there, like it can really change. I think FaZe has more talent than Equinox, but Equinox is very strategically sound on some senses, where like they do a lot of pre-gaming on that. So it's really just the flavor of the day. You know, Equinox is able to beat them. I honestly think if FaZe faced them again, FaZe will be able to beat them. But that's just the team that Equinox is. You know, they sometimes they don't have the best results against worse level teams, but they have the upset potential to beat higher level teams. You know, so that was the whole thing with that. Where I definitely think it was both teams could have easily won that game. So.
And one thing I need to mention is Cloud9 had 2 teams in that event that made it to the top 32.
Yeah.
And I have to mention Cloud9 White because it is a women's team. It's magical team that just got picked up. And there was a lot of hype and talk around the team being picked up as well as them making it that far. I actually watched the Slimy Boogerman's match. It was pretty disappointing, but at the same time, these are the kind of experience that the girls need to gather and bring onto the table. Do you guys play them sometimes in scrims?
We haven't had a chance to play them in scrims yet. It's just hasn't worked out scheduling wise. It's really bad.
But no, that's it. It's really cool to see them being there and see Cloud9 actually, you know, I want to jump right away on the rosters because Cloud9 now has 3 Valorant teams, guys. They picked up a Korean roster and they have a women roster and they have an NA roster. So they're doubling down on, not tripling down on Valorant at C9, which is both awesome, but at the same time, very interesting.
Yeah, I think, you know, with Cloud9's history, it just makes so much sense, right? I mean, coming from League of Legends and having your start there and like really popping off, really showing support behind this scene early on does bode well for them, especially with their pickups. Their pickups are honestly very good, and I like this Korean pickup so far. They're bringing on It's just 3 players, while they need to still round out 2 more. And then Pavane is going to end up being their coach. And Pavane, if you guys aren't aware, was from Overwatch. He was coach for LW Red, LW Blue early on, which was one of the best, or should have been one of the best Overwatch teams if it wasn't some roster shenanigans because of rules set by Apex Overwatch in Korea. And then he went on to be the coach for London Spitfire, and then NYXL, and then the London Spitfire. So like he comes with a lot of experience. And researching this roster of Buzz, like Hayden and Zeta, I was really only able to find information about Zeta, and Zeta's competitive CS:GO in Korea, which is saying a lot for a scene that really doesn't exist. So like he stuck it through for like 5 or 6 years there, and like his results were okay.
He changed name. It says on his Twitter profile that he is C9 Zeta, but he used to be Sony in Counter-Strike, which I think is very, very interesting. And also, once again, Nolan, marketing-wise, probably not a good idea.
Yeah, it's not the best thing to change your name around, because that eventually becomes your brand and who you are. So if you're changing your name, people are like, who's this guy again? And then they have to look through a while instead of just like, oh, that's that guy. I know him.
Yeah.
And it just clicks.
And that being said, we also have a Valorant player ranking now. There's a leaderboard. So that name is even more crucial to make sure that you don't switch, because now it's officialized on that leaderboard. And that top 10. Any surprise there for you guys in that top 10?
Not really. There are a bunch of people who play ranked a lot and stream it. And then there's number 2 who we all know.
No, I don't. Tell me.
Doink Machine 97.
Doink Machine 97 is
I believe it's someone's alt.
Oh, that's why.
I believe it's someone's alt account. Because what I've been told by Prophecy, because he actually has his name up there twice. I believe like 50 something and then 60 something, because he had to get a second account because queue times, they eventually take way too long. And making a second account means shorter queues, and people might not know who you are. So like if you saw Wardell on the other team, you might try your hardest. But if you saw Doink Machine 97, you're not knowing who the hell this guy is. And you're like, who is he? Like, and it would actually make you upset that you're losing to someone named that, rather than, oh, I'm losing Wardell, whatever. Like, he's on TSM. Yeah.
Legends tell of a Doink Machine 97.
I like it. But I am actually surprised to see some of these names there. Not because I don't think they're good, but for example, Danny Yun in Counter-Strike, so he's number 6, right? In Counter-Strike, he wasn't particularly known for his individual like play. He was more known about his smarts and his leadership. So to see him be number 6 is actually quite fun, and I'm happy for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think I faced Team Livid back when they were with Huna for a while, and when they were advanced, and then they made it to MDL and all that. And it was always like, they were always one of those strategic kind of teams. So they kind of brought that over to Gen G. And that was actually one of the reasons I made my switch over to Valorant, is because I saw Team Livid got picked up, or they're French Canadians, they got picked up by Gen G. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of promise here, you know? So that was one of the reasons I actually went over that. So
that's awesome. That's a good little story here. That's why you guys are on the show, for these kind of little insights. I like it a lot. And there's a couple of guys I don't know who they are. I assume they're probably alts too. Like TH Wifo is. Oh no, Wifo is someone.
Twyfo's on X.
Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind, guys. We just talked about him. Can we erase that even happened?
No, I think like one things that the ranked leaderboard shows you is that, like most games, a ranked leaderboard is a lot of the times who grinds the most, who just puts the most hours in ranked, right? And you can put a lot of stock into it, but I don't think you should. Like a lot of people were like complaining. I think Mendo, right, tweeted when he saw this particular tweet. He was like, well, I had known this was gonna happen, I would have tried harder in ranked. I would have like grind ranked more. Like, so I'm definitely not surprised. You know, you see a lot of people. These are like the people who are just like 24/7 playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing about this is that it was actually a surprise. So it was like, this is without knowing there's a rank. Here's the surprise. So now I'm sure people are gonna be trying much harder now that they know that this can happen. And I wonder if it's not to counter a little bit the alts, like you mentioned.
I would be more excited if they actually put it in the game itself instead of it's a Twitter post, because then there's no MMR to it, so to speak. It's just a number. You're like, oh, this person's rank 1, this person's rank 2. Like, how far are they really apart? It's rank 1 from rank 5 or rank 1 from rank 100. You don't know. You have no clue. It could be literally 1 game per person, or it could just be an immense difference between 2 placings. So if they put this in the game with an MMR leaderboard, I would put more stock into it, as well as like, oh.
Do you guys think they're trying to create their own like FPL kind of like ESE rank S kind of platform within the game slowly by introducing individual performances for players that are not on teams and stuff like that?
I would say it would more follow like StarCraft and League, where they have a leaderboard built in, like, oh, your top 100 grandmasters or your champions or challengers, in League, which is much more distinct on like, oh, this person is actually pretty good, rather than like, okay, that's the top 100. I guess you say so.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about the patch. Like, we're running out of time. We have like 12 minutes left, and we still have a pretty big patch to get through. Okay, so when we look at the patch, I mean, I think there are some pretty substantial changes. One of the things my biggest question from this patch is, why Breach? Why did they, like, pretty big buffs him, right? Why did they do that?
To my understanding, it was what the devs said is that the numbers showed, like, specifically Breach, his pick rate and win rate was not at a place they would like. Albeit people were like, oh, he has high impact with his flashes, you see them all the time, but he's not winning to the point where he's overpowered. He's actually losing more than anyone else. And Sage is still winning more than him, specifically. So they're like, okay, he needs a little more.
Yeah. I think personally it's kind of like a thing of, if anyone's played League of Legends, like Aurelion Sol, where Aurelion Sol has like a 60% win rate in like competitive, but he's so hard to play. It's such a high skill cap, where like Breach is kind of like that same character, where if you want to play him and get good wins out of him, you need to be able to play him correctly and need to play him well. And I don't think it's getting to a point where there's the people that are good at Breach that this is just making them insane, like tier S character immediately. But the people that are trying to get good at him, it is a little bit of a skill ceiling or a skill that you have to get to be able to play him at an efficient level. And I don't think really Riot's taking that into consideration, that he is a good point, but people need to learn him to a factor to make him the best character he can be. So
I was talking to Guimau a lot, because when I played my Induction Series tournament, he was the Breach and I had to learn Breach. And it was the first character I went really hardcore on, and he was telling me for him it's probably the hardest character to play at the moment, just because, like you mentioned, it's so hard to master, and so you can get quite often throw the wrong flash or be caught with your end out and like never get the kills because you're pushing to support your friends. So on the scoreboard you look like trash. And, like, the whole Breach aura is actually pretty difficult to master. So I would like to agree with that. It was really depressing playing Breach, actually. It was so hard, but at some point when you get the hang of it, it starts to be fun.
Yeah, in comparison to him versus like Jet, for example. Jet is much more self-sufficient, while Breach is very teamwork oriented. So it's harder to utilize him, especially in ranked, because we all know how people play in ranked.
So who do you think benefits most? Like, which teams in North America like benefit most from this Breach change?
Sentinels, because they're one of the few people who are playing him from the start. So they're going to be much more comfortable using him and going through with it.
Yeah,
strategic teams. even Equinox could honestly get a pack from this.
Yeah, I think that that you guys are right. Also, whoever plays the breach is important. I think he's really in.
Yeah.
Like his name is Initiators, right? So you need someone that's pretty vocal and that knows the timing, and like not everyone can play a breach, I would think. Unlike, for example, a Sage, where back in the days anyone Sage, you just had to learn. But breach, I think it's something that you kind of, for me, need to understand more than just the abilities. Like you mentioned, it's not a jet, it's not self. You need to understand like.
Yeah, on the other side of the spectrum, we also have, like the Sentinels.
Yeah.
Major changes to them, to Cypher
Yep.
and to Killjoy. And I'm actually pretty happy about it. Except for I kind of wish like Cypher's Trapwire would stick around. I like
Yeah.
Killjoy. Cypher's feels weird to me. How do you guys feel about it?
Well, as a Cypher main, I hate it. I had so much pride about telling my teammates to not defuse and picking up my tripwires for next round, and I can't do that anymore. So I just have to look at them and just wait for the round to end. So I think for me, with the economy changes, that's the one thing I didn't like. But I think everything else about it's good, because I think having information in a tactical shooter is the best thing you can have, period. So with a character like Cypher, Killjoy, even a little bit of Sova, like they're good characters, not because of what they provide in terms of stopping a site or getting kills or stuff like that. They're good characters because of the information they gain you, and that's going to be powerful no matter what meta it's going to be. So kind of limiting that at now, it's much better than later, in my opinion.
Yeah, I played with it with that different these different players in the last characters in the last 2 days, and I'm, even though it was, like you said, kind of frustrating to see that you have less power, I think it is for the better. It's changes that make sense for me, even if they're kind of nerfed.
And you brought up an important point, which leads directly into the next one. We do have a major economy change, and I think this was one of the biggest things that really set apart the game in terms of economy from CS:GO. Was surviving around, right? When you lose, now your gold is down to 1,000. That was before, like if you lost a round, it was 1,900 plus whatever round loss bonuses. That is a massive change. Like, how do you think that affects the overall competitive scene?
So it's actually was a thing in CS with on T side. If you didn't get bomb planning saved, you didn't get any money at all. The only difference in Valorant and compared to that is in Valorant you need to rebuy your armor much more consistently. So that I think it was their way to mitigate. Okay, you get $1,000 to rebuy your armor for the next round, but you still have everything from the last round you had before. The same thing as kind of like CS. So I think that it's still going to be a thing where you're going to have to save and stuff like that. I think the good teams are still going to save and still going to play the economy game to the best they can be. The only difference is now you're more incentivized to actually get the bomb down, especially with how execute heavy this game is and what you can be creative with it. Getting the bomb down is much more important now, and dying to the bomb on CT side is much more important too. So I think the main change is really the CT side change, where you just want to run into site if you don't have anything, especially on an eco round, just to die to the bomb or die to a player, or else your money's going to be really bad for the next round. So
does this change in any way, like if you need to like save 2 rounds, or like you save 1 and then now you're like forced into like a force buy? Like how does that work?
I would say it's more based on what you go into the round. If you, let's say it's second round, you lost pistol, and they get the bomb down, your CT, the best thing to do is to play contain and make sure they're dying too, because you can always just die to the bomb. Dying to the bomb gives you the same money as you would normally get because you didn't technically live. So that is the best thing you can do now. Well, before you're kind of like, okay, maybe I can go and maybe I can get it, and if I get a gun I can try to live. But now you're like, oh, I get a gun, okay, this gun's gonna make sure they don't have guns anymore. So you play more to hurt their money on those types of rounds rather than playing to keep your money.
Yeah, I like the economy rule set. It's gonna be fun to see how it adjusts. This is for me pretty cool. Guys, we're running out of time. So before we go to shout outs, this is such a good episode. Jamerson, pick one question, either the useless agent or left-handed. What do you want to talk about?
Let's go with Okay, so which agent do you feel has the worst ultimate in the game?
For me, either it's gonna have to be Cypher or probably Cypher. Honestly, I can argue a little bit of Reyna. But Reyna ults, it's very good because you can really pop it anytime you want to, where Cypher ult, it requires certain abilities to really get that down, where everything other ultimate, you can put it in a certain situation and get good use out of it. So
I just 100% agree with that too.
Really?
Cypher's just, it only really hurts lurks if you see a CT has it. You're like, okay, maybe I could be a little more passive here so they don't know what's up. But other than that, you're like, okay, cool. You have ult, whatever. I don't care. It's not going to change how I'm playing other than that.
Jamerson, was that your instinct as well to say Cypher?
Well, I actually like Cypher's ultimate. I just think, the biggest drawback is that first you need that body and it needs to be in like a recoverable state for you to be able to get that information, which oftentimes, if you're like a Cypher in like a 1v2 or something, you just don't have that body near you, even though you want to use your ultimate.
Well, the main thing is if you have that body down, that's usually mean you're winning already. So you winning more doesn't really accomplish a lot for that. If you have a 4v5 situation, even maybe in a 4v4, you can argue that if it went even. But usually on T side, it's going to be the best time to really use it, and you're not going to get a lot of value out of it. So the main thing about Cypher ult is it requires that body, but if you have that body, you're already probably winning because you have the map control and you have the body at that point, so you have the advantage. Where every other ultimate, it either has more value on a body, like a Sage ult, or you're able to use it without any other prerequisites.
Yeah, just having the agency over when you want to use it instead of having, definitely there. All right, awesome.
I like it. That's a lot of things that I didn't think about because I'm not a Cypher main. No time to learn that. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show. Why don't you start with personal shout outs? Where can we follow you and such? Start with you, Nolan.
Okay, I'll just do a personal shout out for our coach had an interview recently on GG Recon. It's posted on there. And I just want to shout that out to get that out there, get more people reading it because he's very self-conscious about what he wrote. And the more I can say to him about that, the better.
That's really sweet.
And as for my Twitter, it is temperature CSGO.
Temperature CSGO. Guys, what about you, Chris?
I like to give a shout out to the boys, the team, Alexander, Feed, Raptors, Pronoia, our manager, God bless his soul, Temperature, the man here, even though he's already here, everyone that's been supporting us along the way. Like, it's been amazing, and I mean actually from the bottom of my heart, just to die for it. That although all the people that have been cheering us on, saying the Moon Raccoons name, it really to a point of I was always kind of, I would say sheltered, but in CS I always kept to myself, and now kind of getting out there, it's amazing to see how passionate people can be over a name and over a team, and to me that's just amazing. So besides that,
you guys did a good job.
Yeah, besides that, my Twitter is Rebo Valve. So
Rebo Valve, like Valve?
No, Val, VAL.
Oh, Val like Valorant. Okay, I thought you guys were both stuck on CS here.
I haven't gotten around to changing mine yet.
Thank you so much. Guys, we are doing this podcast every other week, so every 2 weeks, so the next one is going to be in 2 weeks. We love having you guys being on the show, watching, but also giving us topics idea or guest ideas on our socials. So make sure to follow us on Twitter at GiantSlayerVAL. Val, exactly like Rebo. Okay, not Valve. And for the feedback on future show. Jamerson, do you think that you're gonna beat this sickness?
Hopefully in 2 weeks' time. If I don't, then I might not just be there in 2 weeks. But no, it's just I just don't feel well. So yeah.
Hopefully you don't have the Rona. Yeah. You don't have the Rona. Thank you so much, guys, for being on the show. You guys are sweethearts. This was a great episode. On behalf of everyone at home. On behalf of everyone behind the scene, our guests, Jamerson and the producer, thank you so much. And we'll see you for another episode of Running Him Back Into. Bye, everyone.